Deputy Director General, Mr. Dan Tutwait, at the Department of Science and Innovation. He is the DDG responsible for international cooperation and resources. He will do the welcoming remarks as well as open the session. Shortly after him, I would also like to request Mr. Bernard Ray to say his opening remarks. He is the Minister Councillor and the Head of Cooperation from the delegation of the European Union to South Africa. Over to you, Mr. Dutoy.
Thank you very much, Tugela, and a warm welcome and good afternoon to everyone. Just to say that we are recording this webinar for further distribution through social media channels. So if anyone is not comfortable with that, please be aware and that it will be recorded. I'll be very brief because we've really got a full and packed agenda. South Africa has a long-standing and historic partnership on cooperation in science and technology between South Africa and the European Union. It's almost as old as our democracy. And over the years, collaboration with the European Union has delivered significant benefits for South African science, both within accessing opportunities for the sharing of experience, expertise, the development of young researchers, or indeed attracting international funding. And in times such as we are currently living, international partnerships, that joining our forces is more important than ever. And we are really privileged that through our partnership with the European Union, we have ample instruments and close friendships for the South African scientific community to work together with partners in Europe in responding to COVID-19, but indeed also to other societal challenges. So that is the objective of this afternoon session, is to update our community of the whole range of instruments which are available, currently available, which can provide support for cooperation between South Africa and Europe. So it's aimed at sharing information, also to provide advice and support services, and together with a colleague, Mr. Toto Machediso, and the DSI's representative in Brussels, Ms. Vinnie Pillay, are really there with their colleagues to provide advisory support to any South Africans interested in working with European partners and participating in European research and innovation partnerships. And of course, the objective of the call is also to promote networking and provide the South African community participating in this call with an opportunity to perhaps identify partners for joint efforts. For the Department of Science and Innovation, international cooperation and cooperation with Europe is more important than ever. This is a relationship which is also very much a key priority for our foreign policy. And we see science diplomacy as a critical instrument for cementing that historic political, economic, and development ties with Europe. So thank you very much for everyone who has taken the time to join us, and all those who have contributed to put the program together. And I'm also delighted that Mr. Bernard Ray, who's our friend from the European Union delegation in South Africa, has made the time to address the webinar. The department truly appreciates the close cooperation we have with the delegation. So over to you, Tugela, and thank you very much.
Thank you, DDG, for the warm welcome. I would like to then hand over to you, Mr. Ray, to please say your remarks.
Good afternoon to everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me well. Thank you, Dan, for your words. And yes, it's a very strong partnership. Thank you for the team to organize this ESASTAP Information Day and for offering the delegation time in this session. I'll probably have three messages. The first one is, like Dan Dutoit was saying, how the cooperation in science and technology and innovation is a core component of the strategic partnership between the EU and South Africa. This was again reminded on the last presidential summit, which was held in Brussels in November 2018. And Probably it's because we share, the EU and South Africa, a vision on the strategic importance of science, technology, and innovation. It's a cross-cutting instrument that has a lot of potential to kickstart catalytic changes, big leaps, and certainly what is happening now with the COVID-19 crisis is an excellent example of how we have all mobilized our scientific community. Business as usual approaches cannot trigger these fundamental changes that are required. It's innovation that pick these strides towards addressing not South Africa challenges, but the world challenges altogether. This is why the partnership is important. And this is why international cooperation plays a key role in the emergence and innovation, in maximizing their positive yield. My second point is noting the scope and the performance of South Africa in the STI cooperation. Our cooperation between the EU and South Africa around science constitutes a vivid example of cooperation that benefits both parts equally. And in addition, we often contribute together to global gains. Like if we see some of the flagship areas of cooperation today, marine science in the context of the Belém Statement, health, which is a very big component of our partnership, and in particular the ECDTP program, astronomy with the Square Kilometre Array, water in the context of Water Joint Programming Initiative. That's only to name a few. And South Africa science is really doing well. It's the second, just after the USA, non-EU member recipient funding. And it's the fifth country worldwide in terms of total participation in the framework programs. And in terms of success rates of applications, South Africa is 8th among the most active non-associated countries with a success rate close to 24%. This is well above average. And clearly, an important part of this success must be linked, attributed to ESASTAP, and that brings me to my third point, the value of platforms like ESASTAP. As members of science and research community, you know very well that building networks, leveraging synergies are essential to ensure the best possible output. And really, we are so grateful that ESASTAP, which was initiated by the EU, is kept functioning, operating, providing the services. There are other platforms like EUREKA, Eurostars, where South Africa is also playing an active role. So to conclude, I thank again for the initiative of this meeting. I hope the participants will really get the benefit of future contributions and future participations in the EU Research and Innovation Program, and that these programs will keep on alive and very dynamic, the cooperation, scientific cooperation between the EU and South Africa. I wish you a good afternoon and thank you for listening to me. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ray, and thank you to you also, Mr. Dutoit, for the welcoming remarks. Indeed, the ESASTAP platform has played a significant role in the success of the South Africa EU cooperation in science, technology, and innovation. Our first speaker, who will now be presenting one of the programs that we are implementing at the Department of Science and Innovation and also through the ESASTAP platform, is Mr. Toto Matsidiso. He is the Deputy Director at the Strategic Partnerships Directorate. He will be presenting to you about the EUREKA and the Eurostars platform. So I will stop sharing my screen, Toto, and then you can share your presentation and start presenting. Over to you.
Thank you much, Tugela, and good afternoon, everyone. As Tugela said, my name is Toto Matidi, so I'm the Deputy Director responsible for strategic partnerships within the Department of Science and Technology. And our portfolio is mainly the European, the relationship between South Africa and the EU. My presentation, I hope everyone can hear me well and you are able to see my screen. Can I continue? Okay.
No, Toto, we can't see your screen.
Okay, let me see again here.
I think it's coming up now. Yes, we can see your screen.
You can see my screen now. Okay.
Yes, you can just go to slideshow.
I'm on slideshow already.
Yes, that's perfect.
It's everything fine?
Yes.
Thank you, Tugela. Good afternoon once more. My presentation will outline two of the collaborations that we are involved in, which is EUREKA as well as the Eurostars. So I will touch most of the time on EUREKA, just a general explanation, the opportunities there, which has the COVID call, also the GlobalStars call, as well as the call on artificial intelligence. Then I will also just give a brief background and introduction of the Eurostars. Firstly, EUREKA, in definition, it's an international governmental network which comprises mainly of the EU countries. There are also non-EU countries in the network, which is South Africa, Canada is one of them, South Korea, Chile as well. The main aim of this network is to assist or to fund projects which are R&D focused, as well as to make sure that these projects go to the market, because mainly is to ensure that not only research and innovation is being pushed forward, but as well as R&D projects which can lead to commercialization. And all in all these countries, 46 countries who are part of EUREKA network, they participate in ensuring that they fund their respective applicants, meaning that if an applicant is from South Africa through the Department of Science and Innovation, then the department will be responsible to finance the participation of such an entity. So these are full EUREKA membership member countries. As you can see there, mainly it's EU and few associated countries, which are South Korea, Canada, ourselves, and Chile. One would ask, and remember, one would ask, how do you start a EUREKA project? Firstly, you need to have an innovative idea because it's more about innovative ideas. And then you will need to contact your national project coordinator. In this case, for South Africa, is myself who is the coordinator, but I work with my colleagues, Tugela, who's facilitating, Ms. Ntombi Mkuba, as well as colleagues from the Technology Innovation Agency. And you'll be expected to set up your consortium with your idea, and it probably would be from the EUREKA participating countries. and your application will be done. And there are two things during application. There could be projects which come out of a call, which I'm going to talk about, but also there are projects which can come anywhere, anytime. Hence, EUREKA is a bottom-up funding network. So you don't always have to wait for a call, but there are instances where mainly projects are being taken from calls which are being published. And then at the end of the day, there will be national funding for those countries that participate in the EUREKA network. There has been, over the past few months, due to COVID-19, a lot of initiatives that came about to ensure that the scientific environment, as well as countries gear for getting a cure for this pandemic. There's already been one call that has closed on the 15th of May, so don't be surprised when you see the call 2. There's already been the first call which has closed. Now, this second call, it's called Solutions for Post-COVID-19, which is the next high impact human pandemic. So the call is about solutions post COVID. The countries that participate in that call there is Belgium, Canada, Estonia, Finland, France, the Netherlands, Spain, Turkey, Sweden, as well as South Africa. This call has been open from 15th of May. It will close on the 15th of July. And if you remember on the previous slide, I said that you need to submit an application, and also there should be national funding, because the funds for participation in EUREKA will be coming from your own country where the company is. So for South Africa, also you'll be expected to complete a national application, which should go along with the EUREKA application. So there'll be two applications, one with your EUREKA partners, and the other one only you as a South African partner. The other partners as well, they do have their own national funding, and if I'm not mistaken, most of the funding partners, their national applications are aligned to the call, which is 15th of July, but you may have to check with your national funding agency. We're expecting that the funding decisions after evaluation of this call should be ready by 15th November. The projects may run up to 36 months. However, through the previous years, we've seen that most of the good projects run actually for 24 months, because you also need to prepare for commercialization of your product or service. So mainly it's 24, but you can push your project up to 36 months. These are below the call websites. I will share the slide with all the websites at the end of the presentation, and I will guess that this presentation will also be available for everyone to see. The call that I have, that we're talking about, it's mainly limited on this. It's not limited to areas that talks to either, it could be your technologies for resilience, it could be medical intervention, that's the whole long list, sanitation technology, diagnostics and testing, medical intervention, robotics, smart technologies, GovTech, which open data, as well as your big data. So it's not limited to those areas. Any area which is aligned to the cure or any other preparedness post COVID-19 will be welcome, and it should be making a scientific sense. So that's basically all about that call, the COVID-19 call 2. The next call that is available, which is also an opportunity where South Africa participate, it's what is called the GlobalStars Call. between Singapore and the EUREKA member countries. The reason why it's called that is because this call is being initiated and led by Singapore. So meaning that all the proposals that are there should have Singapore as a partner. It could be any EUREKA member country, but also Singapore will form part of the consortium. Singapore is not yet a member of EUREKA network, but I think this is building towards them being a member. So the countries that are participating are there. It's Austria, Belgium, Canada, Hungary, Estonia, the Netherlands, Poland, South Africa is also there, South Korea, Spain, Switzerland, Turkey, Ukraine, as well as the UK. Now, this call, it's a very open one, which is exciting for most people because it's inviting projects from any sector within the EUREKA network. I would advise colleagues also to look into the EUREKA website just to see what is EUREKA funding. But just in short, all the projects are being funded except those that promote military and war and all in that category. Those are not funded, but anything that talks to civilian purpose, product or service, they are most welcome. This call is almost finalized, so it will open from the 8th of June, that is next week, Monday. Deadline for applications, it's 15th October. We've made it very long to accommodate the uncertainty in the coming few months due to the summer in Europe, as well as the spike of corona COVID-19 status within South Africa. So there's a very long period for applicants to get ready. There will also be, and I think my colleague Vini Pillay, who's also part of this call, will maybe, if she has more information, there is a plan to have another information session or a matchmaking session on this call on the 25th of June. So it would be good to keep looking at the ESASTAP website for more details of this call. Like I said, and we expect that the funding decisions will be in January to February 2021, and the project may start as soon as funding is provided. The website is there from the EUREKA website about the call with Singapore. So this is a new exciting call, and we hope that more people will be interested to participate, mainly South African small, medium enterprises, and the academia and science council may also participate as subcontractors to the call. And on this call, it's a bit different from most calls because it will involve 4 stages, which is you'll do your application, which is available at the new EUREKA website, which is Smart Simple. There will also be national applications. All partners are required to submit. Even if you want to self-fund your project, you need to contact your national funding body, which in this sense, it will be the Department of Science and Innovation, and we work close by with our agency, that is the Technology Innovation Agency. There will be international as well as national evaluation in this call, in a sense that all applications will be assessed for eligibility before they are being put forward to national assessment, and then eligibility will also be done by the EUREKA Secretariat as well, which is based in Belgium. And all the successful projects after the first assessment will be given what we call a EUREKA label. The EUREKA label is just sort of a permission to continue for the national funding body, which is either your department or your funding agency, to start engaging the applicant on funding in terms of the direction of the project, as well as other scientific evaluation of the call. And funding will only be provided to labeled projects. So if your project was not given a label from the onset, it means that your application was not successful to go over that stage. And to make sure that there is funding that is in accordance with good projects, the ranking list will be taken into account, meaning that projects with high scores will be considered for finding first in terms of how they performed over a determined evaluation criteria which will be set. There's also another opportunity which I will touch quickly on, which is called EUREKA Clusters Artificial Intelligence Call for projects. Within the EUREKA network, there are several clusters which are called, one is Celtics cluster, another one is Europa's Penta cluster, EUREKA cluster. So this, and as well as the IT3 cluster. These clusters are thematic areas, which is energy, another one is ICT, as well as advanced manufacturing. So they've come together and with 15 countries, which are listed below, to make one call on artificial intelligence. And if I think you may be aware that artificial intelligence cuts across, you find it in agriculture, you find it in robotics, in advanced manufacturing. So it is good that we have this initiative whereby one area is being used across all clusters. So this call, it's been open from 15th April. We do participate as South Africa on this call. It will be closing on the 15th of June, which is very close date. There's still a window for South African SMEs who still want to participate. You're welcome to contact us immediately if you either have a concept, as well as if you go into the EUREKA website, there's an option where if you're looking for partners, you can contact directly, or you can send an email on the website to the particular representative of that country to say you need partners from that country, but we can also from our side assist to facilitate that. So that's basically all about the calls which are available on the EUREKA network. We are available to assist, looking especially at the very last call, which is closing in the next few days. Now, as I step over to Eurostars, Eurostars is managed by EUREKA. It's a component of EUREKA as well. The difference between the two is that on EUREKA projects, anyone may lead the consortium, except on special or specific calls, like we said on the previous one, that from South Africa on the 3 calls that we mentioned, they'll be led by SMEs. But generally, EUREKA, anyone may lead the consortium. But on Eurostars, projects are led by research and development SMEs, large companies, universities, as well as individuals may also participate in terms of being subcontractors or being partners in the consortium. Like I mentioned, it's a component of EUREKA. It's mainly looking at enhancing economic growth, competitiveness, as well as job creation. The projects on Eurostars run a maximum of also 3 years. But we encourage people to look into 2 years to make sure that you complete the R&D part quickly, so that when you go into your commercialization, then you still have enough time, and with the fast-paced world and technology that we have, then you're not taken off or you're not overtaken by events. Eurostars, there are 2 calls per year. Both of them are bottom-up. The first one closed earlier on in March. The next cutoff date for the next call will be on the 3rd of September. So it's not very far, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a good opportunity to start engaging with us in terms of your idea that you have for Eurostars call. I think I've touched on all those. And 2 participants are expected minimum. There's one project that has about up to 8 participants. So, but minimum will be 2, which means it will be from either a EUREKA, 2 EUREKA, any Eurostars participating countries. And they should be autonomous as well as legal entities. It puts the SMEs in the driving seat. I think I've already mentioned that. And international balance, which means that no partner may take a lot of work within the consortium or within the partnership. It should not be over a certain percentage as prescribed by the call, but mainly it's no more than 65% of the work should be done by one partner. So there should be equal distribution of work between partners. And once your R&D part is finalized, you should have at least minimum 2 years to take your product to the market or to take your service to the market as well, because it's not mainly about a product, it's also about service. So these are the 36 Eurostars countries. As you can see that not everyone who is a member of EUREKA is also a member of Eurostars. For South Africa, we are both on Eurostars as well as EUREKA. Some countries chose to put a lot of their budget on EUREKA, and some has chosen to put a lot of their budget on Eurostars, but some has balanced the spreading of the budget between EUREKA as well as Eurostars. So that's basically all about that. So I just gave a quick overview of that. There's still more that we can talk about in terms of now trying to download and to explain the processes. And I encourage colleagues to go through the website. I think most of you may have seen the ESASTAP website, where you have subscribed, or where you can also subscribe, but mainly look at the following websites for more information on the calls, but also to understand how EUREKA and Eurostars function. And this is the end of my presentation, but to say, with this first virtual session that we have, I think it's a good opportunity for us to start to create networks as well as to maintain them for future usage as well as for future opportunities that may come. On that note, thank you very much together. My presentation stops here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matsidiso, for presenting the EUREKA and the Eurostars program. We do have a few seconds for one burning question. If there's any person who would like to ask something on Mr. Matsidiso's presentation, there are 2 options. You can raise your hand on the chat, or you can just type the question on the chat box, and then we will get back to it when it's on the chat box. But right now, is there anyone who would like to raise their hand, their virtual hand, to ask a question? Okay, if there's no one, I would then like to move to the second speaker. The second speaker will be presenting on opportunities available under the Horizon 2020 Framework Program, which is an EU program for research and innovation. And our presenter is Ms. Vinnie Pillay. She is the Senior Science and Technology Representative to the EU. She is based in Brussels. Over to you, Vinnie. Are you winning, Vinnie? You need to unmute your mic, Vinny.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
And you can see the presentation.
Yes, you can just move to slideshow.
Thanks, thanks colleagues, thanks Tugela. Welcome to our participants. I think basically I just want to focus on specifically the COVID-19 calls that the European Commission has launched under Horizon 2020. Basically, this is the last year technically of Horizon 2020, and from next year, Horizon Europe, the next 7-year program of the EU for research, will kick in. So before I start, I just want to acknowledge some of the information and data in these slides. Is taken from the European Commission website and the Information Day. So these have been shared. There's lots more details on the EC website if you want to go into the details. The European Commission launched a first call in January around COVID-19. And basically, this call was focusing around diagnostics, treatments, vaccines, and improving preparedness for outbreaks. And from that call, 18 projects were funded. Unfortunately, there were no South African participants in any of those projects. So we will be engaging with the European Commission to explore the possibility where there might be in terms of focus areas, etc., for partnering with these. And a matchmaking event is being planned by the European Commission in the next few weeks. So that's just background where things are at. However, the most important part is in a follow-up to the first call launch, there's been a second call, which was launched on the 20th of May, and you'd note the closing date is the 11th of June. Now, these are exceptional circumstances, and basically the turnaround time is very quick, very fast, in terms of making decisions, in terms of getting these research projects started and kicked off. So we don't have too much time to spend on the proposal preparation, but 11th of June is next week already. So basically, there's 5 broad topics in the second cluster of calls that has been launched. You'll see one is around repurposing of manufacturing. The next is around medical technologies, AI. The third one is around behavioral, social, and economic impacts of the outbreak and responses. The fourth is pan-European COVID cohorts, and then it's exploring existing EU and international cohorts related to COVID. I will quickly just go through some of the highlights of the scope. Of course, this is just a quick snapshot, and there's a lot more information if colleagues are interested in looking specifically at any of these calls and topics. So the first topic is around repurposing of manufacturing for vital medical supplies and equipment. One of the things I must say, because I attended the Information Day, the virtual Information Day, is there's a strong call for international cooperation broadly across these topics. So there's opportunities for South Africans to start engaging with their partners in EU member states to potentially look at ideas and submit proposals. So that's throughout all 5 topics, there's a strong dimension for international promotion or international cooperation. So basically, the repurposing of manufacturing, it's basically to look at the repurposing of production capacities to demonstrate the kind of flexibility of models for supply chain. Many of us are aware, while we've been undergoing this COVID-19 pandemic globally, and in South Africa and as well in Europe, we've been faced with shortage of PPEs, shortage of masks, etc. So this is kind of looking at how we can repurpose some of the manufacturing and production capabilities that we actually have currently to make things work quicker and faster in future. The link for this particular topic is under this. We will share the slides on the ESASTAP website, so you can find all the details for this particular call on the Horizon 2020 website. So this is the area 1. So the second topic is basically looking at the technologies, digital tools, and artificial intelligence. And this is basically to improve surveillance and care. So this is also linked to part of the first call. It's looking at surveillance, looking at data analytics, looking at low-cost sensors, wearable devices. How do we use AI for telemedicine, looking at monitoring, remote monitoring for patients, using our data, using AI to actually access information and make decisions regarding pandemic and COVID. This is just a continuation. It's basically focusing on innovation-driven services, data services, looking at exploiting such data, but also looking at diagnostics, prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation under this broad thematic area. And once again, I've put the link here for information and for your interest. The third area, which is a very important dimension of this pandemic, is the social dimension. So it's not just the science that we need to be focusing on. And I know our Human Sciences Research Council in South Africa has been doing lots of work through surveys, etc. And this is an important part about understanding how social behavior is impacting on some of these pandemics and how we can address some of these risks as well. So basically it's integrating the so it's multidisciplinary, looking at medical, social sciences, humanities, you can see all the areas, anthropology, psychology, etc., gender studies, which is an important element in terms of the pandemic, and for South Africa, critically important, especially the role of women in these specific cases as well. And I think globally that's increasingly being acknowledged. So although looking at analyzing and comparing outbreak responses across Europe, it also looks at possibilities of how it's taking place in other parts of the world, and therefore the international cooperation linkage. But also there's a focus on looking at mental health and health inequalities, the psychological toll of this pandemic on, for instance, healthcare workers, on just ordinary people like you and I, you know, who have been experiencing things that are not normal. So I think this kind of, the scope of this call kind of covers all of those specific areas. Again, there's the link for your information on the website and on the EC website. The fourth topic of this set of calls around COVID is around pan-European COVID-19 cohorts. And basically, it's around establishing some of the knowledge base, developing recommendations for preventing the disease, for treating the disease, and also to inform decision-making in terms of long-term consequences. And basically, I mean, the details here, you can read up further. It's looking at, you know, a cohort of population that has been infected, that has not been infected, kind of looking at how, you know, interactions between these cohorts have taken place, looking at the demographics of these cohorts in terms of ages, in terms of sex, underlying conditions, etc. How all of these underlying conditions and factors have impacted on the pandemic and its progress. And there's the link for your information again. And then topic 5, now although I said international cooperation is quite key in all 4 topics, this is a very specific topic focused around international cooperation, and it's for those of us who are familiar with the Horizon 2020 language or framework program language, it's coordination and support action. So basically this specific call is to support international networking. And it's not asking for the creation of new networks, in my understanding from the Information Day. It's looking at networking existing platforms that might already exist. And we as South Africa already fund, and part of many of these platforms globally. How do you bring them together? How do they identify factors for infection, drive lessons, the socioeconomic impacts of the pandemic, and also how to address future pandemics and future crises. So I think this international cooperation, CSA, is also quite important. And there's the link to those calls. So I just want to stop there because it's just basically a quick overview and snapshot of the 5 kind of topics in the second cohort of calls. As I mentioned earlier, it's a really quick turnaround time in terms of getting the projects initiated and on the ground. But also I think from the South African perspective, we are very strong bilaterals. And I think my colleague Kaya is online as well, with many of these EU partner countries. So there's potentially also building on our bilateral partnerships in terms of moving forward within the series of calls that are available at the moment, and actually strengthening those partnerships as well. Thanks, Tugela.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pillay, on that presentation on the Horizon 2020 calls. I'd like to propose that we move directly to Mr. Matshidiso's presentation, since it links up to the framework program. Then after his presentation, we will then take some questions on the overall program. I noted there were 2 questions on the chat box that Mr. Matshidiso has already responded to, and then we'll get to the other set of questions after his presentation. Mr. Matshidiso, please prepare your slides for the presentation on the ERANETs. Mr. Matshidiso?
Thank you, Tugela. I actually started sharing my screen already. Let me see here. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Thank you, Tugela. And once more, taking from what my colleague Vinny has presented, I will present on opportunities for South African researchers emanating from Horizon 2020 as well, which are called the ERANETs. My presentation, I'll start by just explaining a bit what ERANETs are. Then I will go into the few ERANETs that we participate in, which are ERAMIN, ERANET, Martera, as well as the biodiversa. Vinny has already outlined in terms of Horizon 2020 what it aims to achieve. And within Horizon 2020, they set up instruments which are designed to support specific areas in terms of establishing networking structures, to design, implement, but mainly to coordinate joint activities. And I think as I go along, then this will be more clearer if it's not. How they work. These instruments are mainly top-up funding for single joint call. So a single joint call, it's a call that will be published within a specific period or a specific year. And the EU member states, as well as other participating countries like South Africa, Chile, Argentina, then they do participate. And it's not all the EU member states that participate in all the initiatives. Countries such as South Africa, we don't receive a top-up for projects, but we do receive call management support in terms of participating in international meetings, as well as the work that we do, which is called Persons Months, in terms of us working on the project. The top-up funding, which I mentioned earlier, it's done in selected areas with high added value and Horizon 2020 evaluation criteria, because this is part of the Horizon 2020. So these ERA-nets do not take evaluation criteria as we mentioned earlier in EUREKA. There are specific scientific panels that are put together in this area to ensure that these activities are well coordinated and they are done to ensure that the best projects are being funded or are recommended for funding. The first one is the ERA-mean. The reason why it's written the ERA-mean 2, it means that there was a first version of ERA-mean. Now this one is ERA-mean 2. And towards the end of Horizon 2020, the ERA-mean 2 is coming to an end, and we are busy in discussions and conceptualizing ERA-mean 3. This ERA-net aims to work, or it coordinates areas which are non-energy, as well as non-agricultural raw material sector, but also mainly construction and industrial minerals. One area that usually comes tops in this ERA-nets is the raw material initiative, as well as the water, waste, and research in those areas. So these are areas that are come across in many calls over the previous years. For South Africans to participate, or for entities, universities, and industry, you have to contact the DSI prior to submitting your application. This is mainly for us to look at your application in terms of its relevance to our objectives, but as well as to look into the budget that you require, because we do commit budget annually on the call. So it will be good to firstly go to the ERA-mean website, which is mentioned there below, understand what it is, and go through the process. But we are also available to assist. I worked very close on this one with my colleague Ntombi Mkuba. I think she has a presentation later on, but also with Tugela and Vini in terms of the ERA-mean collaboration. For 2019, there was a call that we finalized. The results will be coming very soon on the 30th of June. There are few projects, or there are few proposals, about 3 from South Africa, which are part of the ERA-mean. And over the past years, we had few proposals or few projects that we ran on the consortia. These are briefly the members of the consortia, but they do change on an annual basis in terms of the call. If one country realizes that maybe they don't have funds, or they want to wait for another call, or any other challenge. So the consortia changes members as per call, but the change is very minimal, as well as very non-disruptive. I mentioned that we've been participating on ERA-mean since over the past 5 years, we funded over 5 projects already. These are the 2 current projects that we are participating in. The first one is with our South African partners, University of Johannesburg. The project is actually about to come to an end. We just waiting for the final projects. But if you can see on the right part of the screen, the collaboration that came out of this one project with 8 partners that came from different countries, that is Portugal, Romania, Argentina, Poland. So you can see how vast one South African entity or university can collaborate. And what we've seen is that mainly from this project or from this collaboration, many others come along, because as soon as scientists know each other, then they continue to work on different projects. The same will go to the newly funded one, which is done by the University of Cape Town. This is the results of the 2018 call, which was finalized last year. So these are basically how the calls or how the collaboration within the ERAMIN network goes. The next one is the MERAnet. MERAnet, its main focus is on advanced manufacturing and related areas, which objectives therefore is to ensure that it increase attention to low carbon energy, as well as an environment and circular economy aspect of materials. There's been a call lately in 2020. It's been out in April. It will be closing on the 16th of June. For now, we are still engaging with South African participants. There's been already 5 intention to submit by South African entities, which is universities and science councils. If you're still interested, time may not be on your side, but the core topics are those: the modeling for materials, innovative surfaces, high performance composites, as well as materials for additive manufacturing. The same as the ERAMIN, you are kindly requested to contact the DSI before you submit, because once evaluation start, then when we sit in call evaluation committees, at least we would have known about your intention to submit, or we would have known about your project. So it's easy for us to engage, but also for budgetary purposes, it's easy that we know for how many projects are we going to budget for, and how many of those projects are aligned to the objectives. So that is the website there. And our participation over the past few, I think we've joined MERAnet, I think at the end of 2016. We've had one project which did not complete, but now these are the new projects which still need to kick off soon, as soon as we have finalized agreement with these universities or with these entities, because it's not only universities. The partners here are also Romania. It's also one of the partners that cut across in many consortiums that are being formed, Poland as well as Spain, Germany as well. So these are the new projects under the MERAnet that we are going to be funding soon. But one thing that I would also want to state is that the calls, as they are published every year, some projects don't make it on the first call. People will go again, just retune in accordance with the call text, and they will reapply again. And we've seen actually that some of the projects have applied like twice. If you see the last project, this is their second application. So If you apply for the first time, you don't get it. Second time around, you tweak your proposals here and there, because this is a very competitive area. The next one is what is called the Martera. This ERANET is focused on maritime and marine technologies, as well as the blue growth. Also, this ERANET aim is to bring the industry and research actors across borders, as well as to strengthen international collaboration, which we have been saying over and over again, that the main aim of these initiatives is to strengthen international collaboration. For the 2020 call, there were 11 collaborating countries, which are there: Belarus, Belgium, France, Germany, Malta, Norway, Poland, Romania, Spain, as well as Turkey. You may find that in the next call, the 2021 call, there's a slight difference between the countries, but there are those who have been through the call. We have joined these initiatives in 2018. The call has closed on the 24th of April. Currently, the eligibility checks are ongoing, and the full proposal stage for those proposals that have made it through on the first stage will be closing on the 11th of September. So if we have not applied for this call, then there is no chance now. Then it's better to wait for the next version or for the next call, which will be issued in the following year. Probably the Martera calls are issued early in the year, but it will be good to go through the website to see what is happening. Since our participation, we've had one project that is almost about to end. Our partners from South Africa, there's the CSIR, as well as the South African International Maritime Institute, which are the partners. But if you look on the side, on the right side, you'll find Norway, France, as partners in the project. The second project that we have there is a newly approved one, which we are currently finalizing contractual details with Stellenbosch University. And again, Norway cut across, and you would know how competitive Norwegians are in terms of marine technologies, but also Germany is also part of that consortium. So that's basically all about Martera. We foresee the next call in the coming few months towards the end of the year. So if you are in that area, be on the lookout. The last one in terms of the ERANET, it's what is called the biodiversity. I've just prepared just a short info in terms of this one. It's aimed at coordinating and supporting transnational research on biodiversity, ecosystem services, as well as the nature-based solutions. The first call was in 2019. The full proposal stage has been closed in April. Currently, there are evaluations ongoing. The final decision will be available after the 30th of June. But just to share for those who would be interested to participate going forward, that the main function of this ERANET core fund is looking at mapping and foresight, as well as to improve the strategic research and innovation agenda. But also, like all the others, there is a lot of stakeholder engagement, knowledge transfer, as well as the alignment of systems in terms of what knowledge in terms of the knowledge that is shared between different participating countries. And this is one of the big consortiums. Look at on the first call, how many countries have participated. I will not mention them. I think they are there on the screen. So we sit and wait in anticipation of if the second call will be launched to see how many countries will be participating in this. And we are hopeful as South Africa and DSI to see how we are going to perform in terms of projects that have made it to the final stage of evaluation. So that's basically that about the biodiversity. But all in all, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, these ERA nets that we have shared, there's also other engagements ongoing in terms of the climate, in terms of food and security. We've had one successful ERA net that projects are about to be complete. But all these are forming part of the Horizon 2020 initiatives. And as my colleague Vinny has mentioned, that Horizon 2020 is coming to an end, and we are hopeful that come the next EU framework program, we'll still be able to participate and increase our participation as South Africa. These are the websites that are critical in terms of your information. That is the IRAMAIN, Marterra Biodiversa, as well as the ERANET. On that note, Tugela, I hand it over to you. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, Galebo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matsidi. So we will now open the floor for questions on both presentations, Ms. Vinny's presentation and the presentation on the ERANET. So you're welcome to raise your hand in the participant section or to just write something on the chat. There is actually a question from Bipilo. She is asking that, is there a platform available to connect with international applicants to build a team? Mr. Matsidi, so can you respond to that question? And then the other one is, did I understand correctly that the call that Vinny presented will look only into the existing networks? So we'll start with the one for you, Mr. Matsidi, so, and then Vinny, you can respond to the second question.
Okay, with regard to Buipelo's question, colleagues, there are different scenarios. For example, on Horizon 2020 call, as a South African participant, you will need 3 EU member states to participate. There is partner search tool on the website where you can go in search for partners in a specific area. But also within South Africa, we have a network of experts, which we call the national contact points. These are experts within the National System of Innovation who are appointed by the DG of DSI to be your eyes and ears in terms of Horizon 2020. So you can contact us, we can link you up with those experts, or you can go straight into the ESASTAP website where you will see an expert in your area. Then you should be able to pose your questions. But we are available, myself, Tugela and Dombi. We are what is regarded as assistant NCPs. We are able to assist. When you look also into other platforms such as EUREKA, as I mentioned, if you need partners, there's a partner search tool on the website. We do get a lot of questions or requests from international partners who will link up with South African institutions. So equally so, they are also readily available to receive questions as well as partner search requests. So basically, yes, there is support, which you can either do it yourself on the web, or you may contact us to assist you with partner search, but the assistance is always there from the whole strategic partnerships team, as well as from the Brussels office through Vini Pillay.
Thank you. Ms. Pillay, on the second question, do I understand correctly that the call that you presented will look only into existing networks?
Yes, Tugela, thanks. This is for specifically for the coordination and support action, which was the topic under call, topic 5, international cohorts. So my understanding of the European Commission's requirement is that it looks at existing platforms. So it's not creating new networks, but rather supporting those that already exist that can partner with each other, no matter where in the world they are. So that's the idea behind it. But I think there's more information also if you go into the call text that may give you more details. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Vinnie. I don't see any other questions on the chat box, and I also don't see any hands from the participants. So I assume that everyone is has been responded to. We'll then move directly to our last presenter. Her name is Ms. Ntombi Mkuba. She's the Assistant Director in the Strategic Partnerships Directorate. She will be presenting on the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnerships, EDCTP in short, which is a program which has been quite instrumental in providing some funding opportunities, especially in the current situation that we are facing globally of the COVID-19 pandemic. After her presentation on EDCTP, she will move directly to the instruments or the support that is offered by the Department of Science and Innovation to South African innovators who would like to participate in any of the programs that have been presented by the presenters. So I hand over to you, Ms. Mkuba, to continue the presentation.
Good afternoon, Ms. Matubatuba. Good afternoon, colleagues. There is my presentation outline on EDCTP. I'll be talking on the program and the open calls. Thereafter, then I'll talk on the co-investment, seed funding, and the DSI support instruments. EDCTP, which is in full, is European Clinical Trials Partnerships. The Department of Science and Technology has been participating in the program as old as our democracy, as old as the relationship that we have with the European Union. For more information on the EDCTP program, I've put a website link there for colleagues to look at it. South Africa, through the DSI, supports the South African research community to engage in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, using the expertise to study, to test, to organize, to help, to inform, or advise. South Africa is one of the member states of the EDCTP, is at the advantage whereby we are able to receive direct information on the calls that are out and the calls that South Africa participates in, looking at our national priorities. At the present moment, looking at the pandemic, there are 2 calls specifically that I would like to highlight. That will be the COVID-19 call 1, which is solutions for COVID-19 eco period. This call has been opened on the 15th of May. It has already closed. We are only now waiting for the South African calls, projects that have been approved. The role, therefore, of South Africa will be then to co-invest in the projects where South Africans are participating, as in South African researchers. We call this a top-up fund, meaning that what we're expecting now is that as the South African researchers, which are in consortiums under the COVID-19 call 1, they will apply directly to the DST and will receive a top-up to participate in their projects. There's a second call, which is COVID-19 Call 2, Solutions for Post-COVID-19. The call as well is published on the 15th of May. It will close on the 15th of July. At the end of my presentation, I will have a slide with the website links where we can get further information on these calls. We've got a third call there, which is ethics and regulatory capacities. This call for proposal aims to support sub-Saharan African countries to establish and/or develop robust national medicines, regulatory systems and capacities for ethical review of clinical research and use of medical products and technologies in humans. The call has been opened from the 10th of April 2020. The deadline, therefore, it is the 16th of July 2020. The third call that is opened as well is on ethics and regulatory capacities. I think I've read that one already. We've got one now. The fourth one is on ETCTP regional networks. The call has been opened on the 10th of April. It will close on the 23rd of July 2020. The information regarding the call and the budget on the call, it is listed on the website links that I'm going to share after the presentation. The ETCTP Regional Networks Call has funded 4 regional networks defined geographically as Southern, Eastern, Western, and Central Africa. The purpose of this call for proposal is to provide continued funding to ETCTP regional networks that have demonstrated significant progress towards achieving the predefined deliverables set out in the 2015 call. A call that has been there before, but to get information even on that call, the link, I'll be able to share it, and it is available on the ETCTP website. The fifth call is on capacity development for disease outbreak and epidemic response in Sub-Saharan Africa. The call has been opened on the 10th of April 2020. The deadline is the 30th of July 2020. This call for proposal aims to establish an African cohort of epidemiologists. Support will be given to institutions in Sub-Saharan Africa and Europe that provide master's training in epidemiology and biostats as part of the Africa CDC's framework for public health workforce development. The sixth call will be on career development fellowships in poverty-related diseases and child and adolescent health. The open date is from the 10th April. The deadline then will be the 5th of August 2020. The seventh call is on career development fellowships in poverty-related and child and adolescents, which has been opened from the 10th of April 2020, and the deadline is the 5th of August in 2020. The eighth call is on innovative approaches to enhance poverty-related diseases research. The open date is the 10th April 2020. The deadline is on the 13th of August 2020. The last calls from the calls that I've managed to pick up is the strategic actions to maximize the impact of research on reducing disease burden with development cooperations initiative. All these calls are listed, as I've mentioned, on the ESASTAP website. That is where I've drawn them, and the open date for this last call is the 10th of April, and then the deadline is the 13th of August 2020. Specifically on the EDCTP call, the DST, through the Strategic Partnerships Directorates, works directly with the Directorate Health Innovation that is led by our colleague, Ms. Claudina Lutz. We are as well as seated in the DSI with the National Project Coordinator for South Africa, that is Mr. Dodo Matsidiso. South Africa has got a very strong relationship within the EDCTP as one of the member states countries that are participating in the EDCTP. It participates financially and in kind. For an example, by hosting the clinical trials in South Africa, research institutions, and hosting the EDCTP office in the Medical Research Council in Cape Town. We see this as a positive venture that the DSI has embarked on because now we have a direct link into the program where our health researchers are able to participate directly within the program. Let me then move on out of the EDCTP now to the funding instruments that the DSI is affording to the South African research community. Thank you to Ms. Winnie Pillay and Mr. Matsidiso for their presentations, because the co-investment and the seed funding, including the DST support instruments, actually really speaks to their presentations, to the projects that they are working on and the programs as well. I've mentioned when I was talking on the EDCTP that the DSI has set aside a top-up fund to fund the South African researchers who are participating on the program. We call that as a co-investment. The DSI supports the mobility of the researchers in their engagements with their EU counterparts. This we call seed funding. The information regarding co-investment and seed funding is available under in our ESASTAP website. All the links I will share after the presentation. I just want to make an example of a seed funding that we offer as a department, which is COST. That then will be the EU cooperation in science and technology. This is a program of the EU per se, but the South Africans are participating as well in the program. What is South Africa then doing for the participants at the program is to fund their mobility when going to meet with their EU research counterparts. COST is a bottom-up approach which focus on multidisciplinary cooperation. It promotes early researchers and complements the framework programs. COST does not fund the research, but it provides for network opportunities. Those are the network opportunities that South Africa through the DSI is funding. I will talk about the network opportunities later, but what you see now in front of you, those are the cost domains. Those are specifically the thematic areas that are under COST. If one can go to the COST link that I've shared there, you'll be able to get information, because under each domain, you'll be able to get a number of course actions where maybe you're interested in and then apply through the research office. I will tell you now the steps. Let's look at the EU cooperation and cost. I've mentioned that South Africa, through the DSI, promotes the networking opportunities in cost actions, such as the meetings, the workshops, conferences, training schools, short-term mission. Short-term missions then are allowed to take a period that does not exceed 90 days. It's where South Africa, through the DSI, then will fund a South African researcher that is already a member in a course action to travel and meet with the counterparts and stay within the EU. As well as the EU then disseminate activities. The course actions are opened to universities, the public, private research institutions, as well as NGOs, including the SMEs. Quite a number of South African institutions are already actively participating under the cost action. How do you then therefore participate as a South African researcher under the cost? Just get in touch with the cost share by registering on the website, the cost website. Thereafter, after then your application has been approved, then inform the DSI. Through the DSI, you go into the ESASTAP website. We've got a the contact email, which is contact@esasap.org. I work under the cost with my colleague, Mr. Dodoma Tsidiso. That is where we sit and look at the applications for the South African researchers who wants to participate in the cost activities that I've already mentioned, like short-term missions or any other session where the South African research. On DSI funding, on DSI support instruments, we've got the awareness raising and information sessions, like the session that we're sitting on now, whereby the DST then will advertise through the DSI website and the ESASTAP website to share information on the programs where we're participating on under the EU programs and projects. There's an advisory and technical support as well. We've got quite a number of national contact points. For an example, for the EDCTP program, which falls under health, the national contact point is Ms. Claudina Lutz. We've got the ESASTAP Help Desk, which are colleagues that are seated in the Strategic Partnerships Directorate, who are there and ready and willing to assist. We've got a Brussels office as well. That is Ms. Vinnie Pillay, who's the Senior Science and Technology representative, who is of great assistance to us because the opportunities that are out there within the EU, we most of the time get them from Ms. Pillay. The DSI line directorates as well, they are very supportive. They are the ones who are able to advise us if the applications, the projects that are coming from the research community, if they are in line with the national priorities. But partner matching services was a question that was directed to Mr. Dodoma Tsidiso regarding the partner matching services. We've got a link in the ESASTAP website where you can click and send us a request so that we can look for a partner. Some of the partners are already listed on the page. There's financial support, which is the seed funding and the cost investment that I've already alluded to. Those are the important websites. Some of the websites and their links, they are on the ESASTAP website. I can only advise that colleagues subscribe on the Thank you very much. Over to you, Ms. Matubatuba.
Thank you, Mrs. Mkuba, for the presentation. We will now open the floor for any questions, any clarity-seeking questions on the presentation. Olile, I see that you've been responded to by Mr. Matidi, so I hope that answers your question. So any questions from anyone?
Together, while there is no question yet, maybe just to emphasize on Olile's question, to say that when the budget is displayed on the call as an X amount, say 100,000 euros, it's basically meant for the whole participation. There are instances where we go over the expected amount. There are instances where we don't spend the whole budget, but we do not encourage applicants to budget the full amount, because that is for the whole country's participation.
Thank you, Toto. I just wanted to also indicate our revamped website for the ESASTAP platform. I hope everyone can see my screen, but if you go to www.esastap.org.za, you will find the website and all the opportunities that have been presented. All the information regarding the calls is available on the website. There was a question, I think a request from Olile to share contact details. Also on the website, if you go under contact us, you will find the contact details of all the colleagues. And there is a general email address, contact@esastap.org.za, that you can also send to us. It comes to everyone in the team, and then we will be able to respond to all your questions. So all the programs that have been presented and all the calls, as well as the links to those websites, are available on this website. So if you have not subscribed, please just scroll down and subscribe to the website, and then you will receive all the information regarding the calls, the info sessions, and the opportunities for twinning and brokerage events as well. So if there's no questions from the participants, I think from my side, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time, also during this difficult time, to share with us, to come and listen to the opportunities that we had to present. So I will hand over to Ms. Pillay to do the summary and also the closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, thanks, Tugela. But in no way can I do a summary. It's been such a diverse and rich set of presentations, and I hope that all the colleagues who joined us found value in this. As the two high-level speakers said at the beginning, our DDG, Mr. De Toy, and as well as the EU delegation, Mr. Bernard Ray, South Africa and the EU have a long-standing partnership. And making this partnership successful also depends on the national system of innovation. So to a large degree, it also depends on all of you, on your participation in terms of the initiatives that we make you aware of, in terms of building your networks with communities of practice, with other researchers in EU countries, in Europe and elsewhere. And I think that's important. That's also contributed to the success of this partnership. Also, you would have heard a series of instruments. All of this information, as colleagues have said, are available on the website. And always, these partnerships are exactly that. So although these initiatives and calls are under Horizon 2020, South Africa, through the Department of Science and Innovation, also provides some form of, whether it's seed funding, co-funding, co-investment, top-up, networking through the various instruments, whether it's cost, whether it's the ERA-nets, etc. And I think that's also an important point that kind of came out through the presentations. It's a busy time indeed, and especially for colleagues working in the health sector, in the innovation sector. And I think the two high-level presenters also highlighted the importance of innovation. And I think there are quite a few calls that are coming up around EUREKA, around Eurostars, around Horizon 2020, that also focus on innovation. And I think linked to the South African policy on science, technology, and innovation, innovation is a key area for us going forward. It's a key area for our socioeconomic recovery in terms of science. And I think this is where we should situate some of the strategic work filtering from these calls and partnerships that we've spoken about. But I don't want to keep anyone here longer than necessary, just to thank everyone. And I see the DDG is also online, to thank him for joining the session and opening the session, and colleagues from the EU delegation that are also online. Thank you. And of course, all of you that have participated in this information session. Thanks, Tugela.
Thank you, Vinnie. I think we can officially close the session. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Tugela. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.